Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the FMI podcast where ancient wisdom meets the modern world. Special shout out to our friends tuning in from the Philippines. We're so glad you're joining us for this journey.
Hi, folks. Hope you're all doing well. Today we've got something really interesting lined up. We're diving into Journey to the Kingdom, Lesson 1 Identity and the Image of God. It's a lesson and reflection with deep roots in Orthodox Christian tradition.
Right, this one's all about how we discover our true selves, not just by looking within, but honestly by stepping into relationship with each other and, with Christ. It's not just about figuring out who am I, alone, but really, who am I in relationship? The lesson builds on ancient scripture. We're talking the book of Genesis, writings of Saint Athanasius, Saint Maximus the Confessor, and Saint Gregory of Nyssa. There's this powerful theme that our identity isn't self-made, but something revealed through communion and transformation.
Exactly. And the purpose here is super relevant, exploring Orthodox views on personhood, the difference between being made in the image and likeness of God, and how our journeys mix brokenness and beauty as we aim to grow.
Yep. And on top of all that, this lesson gives us both practical and spiritual tools. There's an activity called Icon of the Soul, where we reflect on our own inner journey, plus prompts to challenge how we see ourselves.
So, whether you're in Manila or anywhere else, we invite you along as we talk about personal transformation, faith, and what identity means in a world that so often says just define yourself. Can ancient wisdom help us see identity, like in a totally new light?
Well, let's kick things off by unpacking this orthodox view of personhood. Stefan, unlike the modern Western take, where it's all about the individual, Orthodox tradition says we're persons because we're called into community.
Yeah, the difference is huge. Being an individual is more about doing your own thing, but personhood in orthodoxy is grounded in relationships. It's like, you only discover who you are when you reach out to others.
Exactly. Like, you know how a single note sounds kind of lonely, but put it with other notes and you get a melody? It's the same. Our identities are meant for harmony, not solo performances.
That's a cool analogy. So it's not just about self assertion. In fact, their teaching says our deepest fulfillment shows up when we empty ourselves in love, connection, and even self giving.
Uh-huh. Saint Maximus the Confessor puts it perfectly. Identity is fulfilled in love and self-emptying, not self-assertion. Makes you think, what if, our best selves are found not by clutching power, but by making space for others?
Right, that flips so much of modern culture on its head. We're pushed to stand out, but here it's about blending in and lifting others up.
Let's talk about that image and likeness part next. Genesis tells us, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So, Stefan, what do you see as the big idea here?
Well, image is kind of our blueprint. Like, we all start out with these ingredients from God, but likeness is the journey. It's, about transformation. We're invited to grow closer and closer in resemblance to the divine.
Right. And that process isn't just one and done. It's ongoing. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18 says, "We are being transformed into his image." So really life is like a never-ending journey.
Yeah, and St. Gregory of Nyssa says the image of God isn't fixed, it's dynamic, always unfolding. So our spiritual journey moves us inch by inch from image towards full likeness. What do you think, listeners? Do you see your life as a constant transformation, or do you feel stuck sometimes?
It's an awesome question, and honestly, it's easy to feel stuck. But this teaching puts way more hope in the journey than in just the destination. Like, we're invited to participate, to keep stepping forward, not just striving alone.
That's so true. And there's this really beautiful idea in Orthodox spirituality: you're never finished. Even saints are on the road, moving from glory to glory.
Exactly. And that leads right into how identity is formed through communion. The lesson quotes John, to all who received him, he gave power to become children of God. So you don't just claim identity, you receive it. It's kind of like being part of a family. You're invited in.
Right, there's that sense of belonging. Nobody earns it all alone. It's given, sometimes unexpectedly, sometimes through struggle.
And sometimes through people like mentors, friends, church. Nobody walks this spiritual path by themselves.
It's true. And the lesson says identity is revealed through relationship with Christ and participation in his life. Almost like you have to join the movement to really discover the music. Speaking of powerful music, let's pull in some of the early greats, the Church Fathers. Saint Athanasius, for example, says, God became man so that man might become God. Kinda wild, right?
That's huge. Saint Athanasius, celebrated for defending the faith against some tough challenges in the 4th century, wasn't just talking about imitation, he meant actual transformation. Like, humans are meant for divine life.
So it's about deification, not just ethics or good deeds, but growing into the fullness of God's own life.
Right. And St. Maximus the Confessor, also a legend in church history, says fulfillment comes from love and self emptying, not from asserting ourselves over others. That's like crazy countercultural, right?
For sure. In a world obsessed with being the best, his wisdom is almost revolutionary. Really makes me pause.
And don't forget St. Gregory of Nyssa. His view that the image of God is dynamic, always transforming, helps us appreciate that change is actually a sign of life.
Even our setbacks and struggles have purpose as part of this ever moving journey.
Right. What if we saw our mistakes as part of the icon God is painting in us, instead of just reasons to criticize ourselves?
That idea really makes me rethink things. So, if listeners are feeling down, maybe it's just a patch of color in the bigger artwork.
Let's flip things for a second. How do modern perspectives stack up against this ancient view? Today's world says, define yourself, set your own rules, but the Orthodox path suggests receiving identity as a gift.
Yeah, we're flooded these days with messages about being unique, standing out. But orthodoxy says uniqueness is, actualized through community, not just me, myself, and I.
Right. And it's not an achievement, it's a calling. Identity becomes something to live into, not earn or prove. What do you think, Stefan? Is there anything from your own experience that feels similar?
Well, growing up, I always wanted to be different, but I found the most meaning, honestly, through finding my place in a group, like family, friendship circles, teams.
I totally relate. There's real magic in discovering purpose when you connect, not just compete. Honestly, it's a challenge to shift out of the spotlight mindset sometimes, but the reward is deeper.
Plus, modern psychological trends often push the self as project, but spiritual traditions ask us to receive the self as mystery. There's humility in that.
It's such a fresh contrast. So when the lesson talks about communion, it's pushing back against being defined by likes, clicks, or even status updates. Instead, it says, let your life be shaped by love.
Exactly. And that's like not easy, especially with social media. What do you all think? Are our identities more fixed, or do they keep evolving with our relationships?
I think they definitely evolve. And honestly, listening to these ancient voices makes me wonder what identity really could be if we embraced more community.
Speaking of growth, the lesson hits home with how spiritual progress is about moving from brokenness to beauty. Ava, do you feel that journey is like something we all share as humans?
Yeah, totally. Each of us carries both scars and strengths, and it's tempting sometimes to hide the brokenness. But this lesson calls us to see ourselves through God's eyes, where beauty comes from vulnerability and healing, not perfection.
That's big. The act of surrender and transformation is central, almost like letting go and being reshaped.
Prayer and reflection become tools, not just rituals. It's this daily conversation with God, like journaling, but more open ended.
And it's not all solo work. Community plays a huge part. Even group prayers or sharing stories can spark growth.
Absolutely. When we talk about transformation, it's not just about ourselves, but about taking steps together. That makes the whole faith journey a group hike instead of a lonely walk.
True. And maybe that's why setbacks are less scary. They're supported, not suffered alone.
Now, let's get creative with this icon of the soul activity. The idea is, imagine if your soul could be painted, what colors, symbols, even saints would show up in your personal portrait?
That's super imaginative. Like, would you go for bright colors to show hope or maybe earth tones to express groundedness?
Exactly. Some might pick warm, vibrant reds for passion. Others might see calm blues for peace. Then there are symbols like a tree for growth or a river for movement.
I think I'd pick a winding path. Sometimes life feels in valleys, not just a straight road.
I love that. And if you reflect on saints, maybe there's someone who's inspired your journey, like Saint Athanasius, who showed courage in defending the faith, or Saint Maximus, who taught self emptying.
Or St. Gregory of Nyssa, who reminds us that growth never stops. The activity pushes us to see our stories with both beauty and broken parts.
And honestly, sharing these icons with friends can reveal new aspects. Someone might see beauty where you only notice cracks.
That's a cool perspective. It makes the journey way more holistic, not just focused on mistakes or strengths.
Right. So if you're listening, do you ever find yourself reflecting on, like, your internal portrait? What colors or images would you pick?
Think about it sometimes. And I bet over time the whole image keeps changing.
For sure, that change means you're growing, not stuck.
The lesson wraps with some pretty challenging discussion prompts. What does it mean to be made in God's image? And how do we grow in likeness?
Deep questions. I think being made in God's image means holding a spark of the divine, like creativity, compassion, or even just the ability to love.
And growing in likeness is less about perfection, more about movement. It's about learning, loving, working through mistakes.
Yeah. When I think of surrender and transformation, I picture a river, sometimes rapid, sometimes calm, always moving towards something larger.
Right, and that's where prayer comes in. There's the closing prayer in the lesson, which is really about asking, help me see myself as you see me, not through the lens of the world, but through the light of your love.
That prayer is a major comfort. Instead of getting stuck on our flaws, it calls us to see ourselves with hope and promise.
I think we all need that reminder, especially on tough days.
Absolutely. So, listeners, what's one thing you'd like to surrender today, trusting it can become part of your story's beauty?
That's a great one. And if you're feeling unsure, remember that your journey isn't done yet. You're still being shaped, still growing.
So, before we recap, let's maybe pause for a second. All of these teachings, icon, image, transformation, feel deeply relevant no matter where we live. I wonder how people in the Philippines might experience personhood differently, maybe drawing from their own strong sense of community.
That's a great angle. Family and group ties are super important there, and honestly, that lines up with the lesson's focus on identity through communion, not autonomy.
It kind of highlights that no matter the culture, the hunger for belonging is, well, universal.
Right, like there's ancient wisdom everywhere, not just in Orthodox Christianity. Makes this lesson feel even more timely, doesn't it?
Let's dig a little deeper into how, icon making actually becomes a spiritual discipline. In the Orthodox tradition, painting or writing an icon is a process of prayer.
That's cool. So you're not just being artistic, you're connecting with something bigger.
Exactly. Every brushstroke, every color is meant to reflect part of your soul's journey. It's an act of devotion.
Even making mistakes while painting can be seen as part of your growth. No need for perfection.
Right. If you mess up, it can be a prayer too, like offering your imperfections back to God.
I like that. It's kind of freeing, actually.
Speaking of freedom, Orthodox spirituality also emphasizes kenosis, which is self-emptying. It's about letting go of ego to make room for others.
And that's tied to love. The less we focus on ourselves, the more room there is for deep relationship.
It's challenging, but super powerful. In a world that teaches self-promotion, the lessons take on identity says opening yourself up can lead to unexpected beauty.
Listeners, have you ever tried putting someone else first and noticed like your own heart get bigger in the process?
That echoes what St. Maximus taught. Self-emptying leads to fulfillment, not loss.
Sometimes the hardest step is the first, but each small move, sharing, forgiving, can reshape your story.
Maybe that's worth trying this week. Start small. Let go of one stubborn grudge or a bit of pride. See what happens.
Forgiveness is huge, and it ties right into transformation. We like to think changing our identity means starting over, but a lot of times it's about letting old hurts heal.
True, and transformation doesn't mean you become someone entirely new. It's more like bringing out the best of what's already there.
There's hope in that. No matter what's happened before, growth is always possible.
That's super comforting, especially if you feel stuck or like you've messed up too much.
And, I think that's where having community helps. Everyone needs support. Nobody is meant to go it alone.
Definitely. It's easier to ask for help or make changes when you're not feeling isolated.
Let's circle back to scripture for a sec. Genesis, where it all starts. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. That plural likeness, that plural us, is surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Some see this as hinting at, well, the communal nature of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's like identity begins in divine relationship.
So even God doesn't roll solo. That tells us something, right? We're wired for partnership.
Right. Then there's John. To all who received him, he gave power to become children of God. Receiving, not just taking. Identity's less about effort and more about invitation.
That's tough to wrap your head around, especially if you're taught to hustle for everything.
I get it. But maybe it's freeing to think you're already invited to the table. All that's left is to, well, grab your seat.
That's a nice way to look at it.
To sum up, I think everything in this lesson asks us to move from independence to true belonging.
And the journey is long, sometimes messy, but super worth it. Brokenness and beauty live together in all our stories.
From personhood defined by connection to growing into likeness, the path is both challenging and rewarding.
With all the wisdom from the church fathers, Athanasius, Maximus, Gregory, we get inspiration, not just information.
Plus, we're reminded that spiritual practices like prayer, icon making, and even honest self reflection are steps on this journey.
And listeners, maybe you can take one practice from today and try it this week. Even just pausing to reflect on your own soul's icon.
We talked about community in the Philippines earlier. Maybe think about those communal meals, big family gatherings. That sense of togetherness is a spiritual reflection, too.
Totally. It's a living example of identity found in relationship, not just in being alone.
So, whether your journey is like rough or smooth, sharing it with others makes it richer. Sometimes that's the only way through the valleys.
Nobody has to face every challenge on their own. That's a good thing to remember.
And if we hold on to ancient wisdom while facing modern challenges, maybe identity becomes less pressure and more possibility.
Another practical takeaway, I think, is to focus on progress, not perfection. Appreciate the small moves, even if change feels slow.
That's a good reminder. Sometimes identity forms one imperfect step at a time.
And every mistake is, in a way, a new brushstroke in your soul's artwork.
Exactly. The icon of the soul isn't finished until the journey's done. Well, to wrap things up, today we've explored how identity, personhood, and transformation are gifts received and shared. We've talked about finding purpose in relationship, embracing both challenges and joys.
Yeah, and we saw how ancient wisdom, like the teachings of the Church Fathers, helps us face modern ideas about self. True belonging always beats going it alone.
Spiritual growth isn't a sprint, it's a lifelong hike. Whether you're painting your own icon or working through hard days, you're invited to keep moving.
So maybe right now, ask yourself, what's one way I can open up to communion this week? Surrender a small piece of pride or offer forgiveness.
Thanks for joining us. Wherever you're listening, especially to our friends in the Philippines, take time to reflect, connect, and remember your story is always unfolding.